Welcome to the C.L.I.M.B. This is a show dedicated to helping singers, songwriters, and indie artists like you create leverage in the music business. This podcast win exists because we want you to win. And what is leverage, you ask? It's a strategic advantage. It's the power to act effectively as a songwriter. It's the power to act effectively as an indie artist and take the most advantage of everything you got going for you. It's why we called it the C.L.I.M.B, C.L.I.M.B, creating leverage in the music business. It doesn't get any better than that. That's a wordsmith thing right there. That comes from a pro, yo. And the pro is my good friend and co-host, Mr. Brent Baxter. Brent is an award-winning hit songwriter with cuts by Alan Jackson, Randy Travis, Lady Antebellum, Joe Nichols, and more. And what I love about my good bro, Brent, is he helps songwriters like you turn pro by revealing how you write like a pro, how to do business like a pro, and then he actually connects you with the freaking pros. Are you kidding me? Like he just leads you right to the water, gets a glass down in, and gives you something to drink. You can find Brent easily at songwritingpro.com. Once again, that's songwritingpro.com.
And I would like to introduce you to my co-host, Johnny Dwinell. Johnny owns Daredevil Production. They help you find your sound and they help you grow your audience so you can become the artist that everybody loves and so you can get paid. Daredevil has worked with multi-platinum artists like Colin Ray, Tracy Lawrence, Ty Herndon, and Andy Griggs, just to name a few. You can find Johnny at daredevilproduction.com. That's production, singular, and no S, and there is no S, and we all know why. There's no S because there's no other Johnny D.
Hey, brother, how are you, man?
Hey, man, I'm doing all right. I'm stoked after our last interview and ready to go and hop on this one.
That was a fun one. Yes.
Hop on this episode. Yep.
What are we going to talk about today? You're driving.
Yeah, I am driving. I'll try to keep us between the ditches. What I want to talk about this time, and really kind of dovetails nicely with our interview with Wilkes from last time, is that artists are brands. Artists have a voice. They have, no pun intended, they have, what they do. And so we're going to talk about that today, just basically being brand conscious as a songwriter. So, artists and their teams often think of themselves as brands, like a can of Coke or a Ford pickup truck, right? Well,
hey, before we dig into that a little bit, I just wanted to sort of give everybody a taste of what we're talking about real quick. If you like this podcast, if it's valuable to you, share it on your social media. Let other people know about it. It's going to make you look cool, and we're going to help other people. Leave a rating and review. Take 20 seconds and do that on iTunes. It makes us look legit. And people who are kind of stumbling across us for the first time are going to look at that, read some of those reviews, and realize that this is real, and they should give it a shot. And then hopefully they're going to feel the same way you do about the content inside. If you haven't already done it, join the C.L.I.M.B community. Go to Facebook, search for the C.L.I.M B community, ask to be let in. We let everybody in, and we'll roadhouse you out. If you're not good boys and girls, we're not afraid to do that either. So join the C.L.I.M B community and subscribe. Subscribe to the podcast. That automatically shows up magically in your phone every single Tuesday, and you can listen to us on the way into work. Get your weekly dose of good information. Mm-hmm. And Brent, we're excited to talk about the first ever C.L.I.M B conference. Tell everybody a little bit about that.
That's right. The weekend of May 5th, we're going to be in Utah. And we're going to be at the C.L.I.M B conference with, it's going to be myself and Johnny and Chris Oglesby from BMG Music and Shelby Kennedy from TuneCore. And they're a digital distributor. If you're an indie artist, you need to know who TuneCore is, and you're going to learn all about them if you come out to the C.L.I.M B conference. We got some good rates going on. It's well worth the investment to come on out there. And you can find out everything you need to know and get registered at theclimbconference.com. theclimbconference.com. Get all the info, and literally we'll see you at the top because it's kind of up in the elevation there. So
that's awesome. And I'll tell you what, between the digital guy with Shelby Kennedy, between the publishing guy with Chris Oglesby, between the songwriter and you and the marketer and me, I think we got all your questions covered. Like, bring your questions and we'll get to the bottom of it.
That's right. We're going to hit all that stuff. So hopefully it's going to be super helpful for everybody. So it'll be a good time. And what better place to spend Cinco de Mayo than Utah?
That's right. All right, so let's talk about brands.
That's right. All right. So the fact is, whether you're aware of it or not, most successful artists think of themselves as a brand, and their teams think of them as a brand, even if they don't quite put it in those terms. So we're going to talk about why it matters to both songwriters and aspiring artists to be brand conscious. And I'm not talking about, Prada. I'm not talking about Nike. I'm talking about, the band as a brand. So, and this is a part of songwriting I didn't know I was signing up for. The business side, the strategic side of things. Sure. I have my MBA, but I really just wanted to move here, write my songs, and have them pitched by somebody to somebody, and whammo, cuts. But the world is how it is. It's not how I wish it were. So now I have to think about artists as brands and try to act accordingly. Okay, so an artist is a brand, and they and their team is like the label, the promotion staff, management, publicist, all that stuff. They work really hard to position their brand or their artist into a certain place in the market. Like, we do music like this for people like these because we are an artist like this. So in business terms, they want to increase their market share, the increase in market share on radio, and they want to increase the market share of our wallets. All right, so everything supports the brand image. We're talking album artwork, the songs, the photos, the videos, all that kind of stuff, which is like branding, what they look like, what they wear, how they talk. All this stuff goes into building that brand image, just like it does for Nike, for Coke, for Victoria's Secret, for Mountain Dew, whatever. Red Bull, they have a brand, and they're looking for songs that fit their brand. Does that make sense, Johnny? Am I getting too marketing, and not for you, I'm sure, too business on that?
This is like music porn for me. Like, I love this. This is exactly what I want to talk about. I mean, we touched a little bit on that from the songwriter space specifically. Say that 5 times fast. When we talked about the record that I cut with Colin Ray, that I produced, co-produced with Colin Ray. So here's a situation where we had a last minute, cattle call. We needed outside cuts. It happened at the last minute. And we said who the artist was in the tip sheet. And Colin Ray has a very specific brand. He's a country artist, 8 million records sold. He's a 90s star. So he's a legacy artist at this point. But he's never sung about cheating. He's never sung about drinking, boozing, a hard lifestyle. That's never been his brand. There's some artists that have that brand, and that's a regular thing that you hear in country music, but that's not his. And I was astounded at the amount of songs that we got when they knew who the singer was that were completely out of the brand. So just, when this is a past episode, 10 worst song demo mistakes. You can go back and revisit the details on that. But from a producer perspective, it was wasting my time. This could be the best cheating song in the world. This guy's never going to sing that because that's not his deal.
It's not his lane. Were there a lot of pickup trucks and tailgates and bonfires? Probably.
Oh my gosh, everything like that. Yeah. And so it was very what you could tell who the pros were. I'll tell you right there. How about that? Like from the producer's perspective, you're like, this guy listened, read, did his homework on the artist, and I have songs that are viable for this artist that can be put in this pile over here of things that we're going to consider. And instead of this pile over here, these people don't know what they're doing and just sent me everything that they have. Right?
So you aren't, in your experience, you weren't necessarily looking for just great songs. You were looking for great songs that fit the artist.
Had to, right? Had to do that. So and
a great song that didn't fit the artist was wasting your time.
Exactly. And so, this is an artist too that has a gift, like a big vocal gift. Like, he is one of the, bar none, the greatest singers ever to grace the stage in country music.
He is a singer with a capital A. Right.
Yeah. And I mean, I mean, literally when we had him in the studio, we did like 4 takes on vocals, and you're like, yep, that's it. That's all we need. Thanks a lot. I'm more than one now. Like that just happened. 4 passes for 12 minutes, right? 15, 20 minutes. You're like, really?
He's good. Yeah.
Like, that's how good he is. But, so the brand also comes in the musicality of it, right? Like what notes you can put in and what notes you can't put in. Colin Ray isn't necessarily going to want to sing a song, even if lyrically it would be in the same lane as Colin Ray could do. I don't think he's going to want to sing something say Kenny Chesney or Tim McGraw would sing, and vice versa, right?
Right.
Like he's going to want to be able to stretch out a little bit and let those horses run because that's his thing. Like,
right.
And these other incredible iconic artists like Tim McGraw and Kenny Chesney have different lanes, and so I think I like this episode because you need to be intentional about that from a songwriter's space as to who and where you're going to put it, and then also. From an artist space, you need to be thinking about what your brand is. Because if you don't know, then you don't know. Like Biggie Smalls said, he was a little bit more colorful with the language. But if you don't know, you don't know. And then guess what? The industry knows that you don't know. And so you think you're ready to go, but they're like, you don't even know what you're doing yet. Like you don't even have the brand together. You got to be thinking about that.
Yeah. To dovetail off that, it was funny. It reminded me of a pitch meeting I had with a label in town. And so I'll go in and I know who's looking at the label, and I'm going and meet with this A&R person. I'm playing some songs, and I'm like, hey, this song is for artist, blah, blah, blah. And so I'll play her the song that I picked out for this artist. She's like, lyrically, man, this is like the topic he would sing. This is right on target, but I don't think he can sing it. Okay, next song.
Yep.
So it was like... The theme and everything was right, but the range wasn't right. This was like not rangy, and it was a little more rangy than he could do. She's like, I mean, it's right up his alley, but he can't sing it. I was like, all right, well, 50% there is another way there.
And it's like Anthony Orio's got the same stories, right? With him, he's like, these are great country songs. He's like, thanks, but who's going to sing them, man?
He's like, I will.
He's like, I can sing them. Yeah, but it's like, yeah, but they can't, So you got to be. You got to be one other thing too when it comes to branding. Just another thing I thought of last second was I've actually had song demos where there is, most song demos we're trying to just cast as wide a net as we can, right?
Yeah.
And so we're trying to make sure we can appeal to a pop country, not so pop country. Like if there's ways that we can fit in with all these different brands, we're trying to be as homogenous as we can to let that artist do their thing and appeal to as many people as possible. But sometimes we'll get a song where it's very, very brand centric. And it's like, let's say this is a perfect Blake Shelton song, right? So we know we're going to pitch it to Blake, or that we know that the writer is going to get the song plugger to pitch it to Blake. We're so intentional about the brand that I've literally had my pro singers, who I have a stable of pro singers who come in and sing on the demos. They'll key it differently. Oh, it's for Blake? Okay, so I'm going to key it down, like a little out of the pro singer, demo singer's comfort zone, not in their sweet spot, but I'm going to go down because Blake's a little lower because it's going to resonate with him more and his brand more, and that's going to give this song a better shot at getting that cut.
Yeah. That's good stuff. That's true. That stuff happens. You're not just making that up. So, So going back to the artists are looking for songs that fit their brand. So whether you're writing for or with a certain artist, it's important for you to understand their brand. So you ask yourself, who is their audience? Who do they speak to? What message do they send to their fans? How do they deliver that message? How does the artist want to be perceived? So this goes deeper than just, they're traditional country or, they're pop country. So if you can write a song that really fits an artist brand, you have a great opportunity. So I think about that song, Real Good Man for Tim McGraw. I mean, that's not a new song by any means, but I think it's one that just, for me, just is such a great example of this. It's such a great song for Tim. Musically, it fits him well. It has a great feel, and Tim can sing it, So lyrically, Real Good Man is totally Tim McGraw's persona. He's a real bad boy, but he's a real good man. I mean, if you were to sum Tim up and his songs and stuff, especially that era when he cut that song, it's like, he's a bad boy, but he's a good man. And then that really works for a lot of country artists too. I think people are fighting over it. But the artist, for example, is Coca-Cola. Their songs are like Coke Classic, Cherry Coke, Coke Zero, Diet Coke, etc. They want songs that both reinforce and expand their brand. Expand their brand. We should hang on to that phrase.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
It's a good phrase. Then they want, so they got Cherry Coke and all this stuff. Maybe what they're looking for song-wise is Cherry Vanilla Coke or Raspberry Coke or something like that. And your song needs to fit on the same shelf with their current songs. It's got to fit on the shelf with Coke Classic, Cherry Coke, Raspberry Vanilla, Purple Coke, whatever. Your song may be the best $200 bottle of wine that can be found, but it doesn't matter. The artist is like Coca-Cola. They don't do wine.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. Just like with the Colin Ray thing, you weren't looking for the best song, the most incredible song. You're looking for the best songs that fit him. You're looking for the best bottle of Coke. You are not looking for the best bottle of wine. Best bottle of wine doesn't matter. $1,000 bottle of wine doesn't matter. We don't do wine. They can't fit on that shelf. You can't sell it on Sundays. So the artist is Coke. So you want to think about that. Another way of looking at it is Taco Bell doesn't sell hamburgers. All right. And so musically, some artists just don't do what they don't do. So my buddy Tim Meitzen, he told me one time, this was years ago, we were doing the drive-through at Taco Bell. He said, they only have like about 3 ingredients. They just put them in different shapes.
Yeah. That's right. And the same kind of crappy cheese they squeeze out of whatever.
It's the same stuff. It's just like
whatever chemical that is they put on it.
Yeah, you like the hard taco, you like the soft taco, let's put them together. Boom, double decker. It's like the same stuff you already had on hand. Yeah. God bless them, right?
We're going to call it this, a chalupa.
It's a chalupa.
A this, a that.
It's a gordita. So that's how a lot of artists are. They keep giving you the same basic ingredients, but they put a little spin on them. They give them different shapes. They keep serving it up a little different way, but it's the same basic ingredients that go into their menu, right? So when they do add something new like a Dorito as a taco shell, it still makes sense for their brand. It may be a spin on it. It may expand the brand a little bit, but it fits on that same shelf, going back to the Coke analogy. Here's an example. Luke Bryan. He's married. He's got kids. He has family, but you wouldn't really know it from listening to his music. His music presents him more as a spring breaking, tailgating, good old party boy who loves the ladies. And I believe like on his first record, there's one song where he had a wife and kids. But that was on his first record before he really found his image and his voice and his brand. And it wasn't
before it was solidified. Yeah.
Right. Since he found his image, he's really stuck to it. And who can blame him, right? It's working awesome. It's working out for him. Now,
number 1.
I know. With that, the last record.
Yeah.
With that being said, now you can see on a few of Luke's more recent singles that he's growing up a little bit. His songs like Fast and Most People Are Good, they're moving him in a more mature direction. So you want to be aware of that. Just because it's what an artist did 3 albums ago doesn't mean it's what they're doing now or what they're going to do for their next record. So there is growth and the brands do change over time. So you want to be aware of that, and you don't want to pitch someone something they did on their first record and they're on their 8th record. Like, have they listened to any of my stuff in the past decade? Because that's not brand appropriate anymore either. So that's something to think about. But what it really comes down to, it's not about who you think what you think the artist should sing or who the artist should be or where you think they should go as an artist. Unless you're in the circle of influence for that artist, it doesn't really matter what you want or what you think. Sorry. It matters where they want to go as an artist, what they want to sing as an artist, what their brand is, where they want to evolve to. It doesn't matter what we want. I mean, I've had people send me stuff and, you hear stuff like, oh, this would be great for so-and-so. They should go here. Well, they should do this thing. Well, it's not on brand. You don't get a vote.
Yeah.
You may think Blake Shelton would sound great taking this left turn into this kind of song or right turn to that kind of, but unless you're one of the decision makers, it doesn't matter what you want. You need to feed him what he does want. So he's not calling me up asking for advice on, artistic choices. He's not calling you up either. You need to get on the train that's already moving. Make sense?
Right. Yeah. I mean, so there's 2 ways to process this information that we're giving out right now. There's 2 angles that you're going to approach it from. One is you're a songwriter and you're trying to get more cuts as a songwriter. And so you need to be cognizant of the brand of the artist and really be intentional about it. The other angle is that you're an artist and a songwriter and you write for yourself and you're trying to find your way into deciding that brand. I want to touch on that just a little bit with some stuff outside of the music industry, okay? But this is how important this is. And this is real. You have to be intentional about this. You have to put some mind power, some brain drain into this to really think it through so that you are, if you want to play at the pro level, okay? You talked about Coca-Cola. Mm-hmm. Coca-Cola as a corporation is literally about half the size of Pepsi.
I had no idea.
But their stock and Coca-Cola is worth twice as much as Pepsi. Because Coke does one thing, and they do it really, really, really well. They make soft drinks. Mm-hmm. Pepsi is into restaurants. They own Taco Bell. They own Pizza Hut. They own KFC. They're into clothing. They got their hands. They're in so many different pies that there's no one way for, and you think, I mean, they're still a big company. They still have stock. They're still publicly traded, but Coca-Cola's kicking their butts 6 ways from Sunday, and they're half the size because they're focused on one brand and doing one thing. Okay. That's how important brand it is, because the brand of Pepsi is so diffused across so many things that it's hard to, it gets confusing for the people trying to run the company. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're a CEO that's a genius in soft drinks, but what do you know about the clothing industry or the restaurant industry? You know, like you're not an expert in that. So, but now you got to make decisions on that, and they're not necessarily going to be the right decisions, right? Toyota and Lexus. Let's talk about that for a second. Lexus, when Toyota first came out with Lexus, everybody knows that Lexus is made by Toyota, and it would be very easy for Toyota just to sell the way their brands, the way Chevy and Ford does, right? Like you can get a Chevy and a Pontiac and a Buick and all the brand names that are under the Chevy GM umbrella. You can get that at any typical dealership, right? All in the same lot. It's sterile, right? But Lexus, when Toyota came out with Lexus, they spent a veritable fortune, billions of dollars buying brand new land, building brand new buildings so that the only thing sold on a Lexus car lot was a Lexus. You're not going to find a brand new Lexus in a brand new Toyota lot. You won't. You might find a used Lexus on a brand new Toyota lot that was traded in, but you're not going to find a new one because they wanted to keep the brands separate. Toyota makes Lexus, and I got a Toyota, but it ain't no Lexus. As long as in the mind of the consumer, that's what it is. That's how they're going to behave. And the reason they did that was it's called brand extension, right? So if you look at like Budweiser thought they were being real smart. They had Budweiser when they first came out, and then they came up with Bud Light, and they thought, this is genius. We just created another product. We're going to sell twice the amount of products now. Guess what? They didn't. They bifurcated their audience. They still sold the same amount of beer. It's only half of them drank regular Budweiser and the other half drank Bud Light. And then they've tried to go with like Bud Lime and all these different things. And every time they do that, they don't sell any more beer. They just divide it up into smaller niches. Right. So if you've noticed, like what's real hot right now in the beer market?
I have no idea.
It's the...
beer should be cold. It shouldn't be anything. They do hot beer now? Oh.
That's over in Europe. Okay. But they have, it's the little local brands, right? I can't
like microbreweries.
The microbreweries,
okay,
that's it, yeah. So Budweiser owns a boatload of different microbreweries, and they don't put Budweiser on a name. They call it that other name, and they own it. And guess what? They're selling more beer when they do that. So a couple things. When you're trying to find your brand, don't try to be somebody else's brand or some extension of somebody else's brand. Be your own brand, but know that there's a brand. Try to figure out what it is. And the only way, by the way, that you're going to do that is just work. You've got to write songs. You've got to perform. And that's how you learn to recognize it, right?
Yeah, I think a couple examples of that. I think, when did Kenny Chesney really blow up? Like, he was having number ones, but he was kind of I used to call him, Tim McGraw used to look at Kenny and call him Kenny Me. Oh, Kenny Me. Like Dr. Evil. Instead of Mini Me, is Kenny Me. Because he was kind of like a little Tim McGraw for a minute there. But then when he found the beach, and he got some sand between his toes, and he started bringing that in and doing like the nostalgia and beach stuff, really found his lane that wasn't occupied in country, kind of the country Jimmy Buffett thing, blew up, megastar. He found his lane and he killed it. And he has a great song sense. He works his butt off. But when he found his thing, that you get like Kenny, that guy, he's the country Buffett or whatever. Boom, huge. Yeah. And then he'd put the work in behind it to make it happen. It wasn't just that he had a good gimmick or something. But another example of something maybe on the other side of it, you remember Chris Gaines? Yeah. Does that name ring a bell? Yeah. So Garth Brooks, like top selling solo act ever. I mean, just crazy, right? 800-pound gorilla country music. So at one point there was supposed to be a movie called The Lamb. I'm a big old Garth nut, so I was keeping up with all the story. But anyway, there's a movie supposed to come out called The Lamb. He was going to portray a fictional singer named Chris Gaines. And to set it up, before the movie came out, they released Chris Gaines' greatest hits. So it's like Garth in tights with a wig on, doing pop rock music.
Trying to look like a rocker, yeah.
Looking like a rocker. This is his made up greatest hits record covering, a decade or two or whatever music. They were supposed to tie into the movie, and then the movie would have an album with it and this whole big, cool marketing thing. Movie never happened. So Garth ends up releasing this record as Chris Gaines. Everybody's confused. They're like, what is he off his rocker? Oh my goodness, he's wearing tights.
Yeah. And Spanx, because he looked a lot thinner as Chris
Spanx, right. Chris, yeah.
Chris Spanx.
Chris lost, I don't know. But yeah, so everybody was confused. Now, granted, he still sold 3 million records, but for him, that was not even half of what he was normally selling because people were confused. The brand we didn't understand the story. I still bought it. There's actually some really good music on there, but it was totally off brand for him and really threw a kink in a lot of people's. They didn't know what was going on. They were very confused by it. So you got
another example of that is Tracy Lawrence. Like, he's kind of been, not all his songs are like that, but his brand's kind of like that triple meter waltz, country waltz kind of a thing. That's been his sort of brand. That's been his lane, and he can slay that. And then
I see it now.
He did a record where he didn't do any of that. Nobody bought it. Everybody's like, that's not my guy, So I wanted to say this because I keep running into, especially like, amateur songwriters and amateur artists who are early on in their journey. And they're like, well, I really like rock and I love country and I love salsa and I love raga and I love EDM. And so my dream is to make this record and have each one of these on there. And that's going to be awesome. And I'm just like, I quote a line from the movie Sweet Home Alabama. You can't ride two horses with one ass, sugar bee. And certainly you can't ride five, right? So you've got to pick one. Like, look at what John Mayer did with his brand. Like he chose the pop route. He's a huge blues fan. Okay. But he went and did a bunch of pop records first, created his huge brand. Then he did the John Mayer Trio. And that was just a project that didn't have to sell for him.
Right.
Because it wasn't going to infringe on the John Mayer brand. This is a blues thing, a different thing over here. And that's a blues record that went platinum. When was the last time that happened? That was a big deal because he set it up the right way, as opposed to trying to your point, when you're talking about how people get confused, like, are you a rock guy, man? Are you an EDM guy? Are you a rock guy? Are you what are you? I can't tell from listening to this record. It's never going to sell like that. There's got to be something for people to latch on to. You're not going to get into the mind of the consumer.
Yeah, and like Chesney, he blown up country, would have some of that beach flavor, and then he came out with the O Blue Chair record, which is all like laid back, beachy type songs. I don't think they worked a single to radio. He's come out with a couple of those albums that are just kind of extra albums.
Yeah.
I love them.
Where he does whatever he wants, and it's not necessarily got to be brands. Like, he can still stretch out as an artist.
He's not worried about going, I need a big country hit for country radio.
Yeah, that's right.
I can just get vibe record for the beach, and a lot of his hardcore fans are going to buy it and love it. But he's not worried because he's set. But he keeps coming back to his brand, though. He keeps coming back to something for radio.
Yeah, he launches off in there just so he doesn't get creatively stifled or bored.
Yeah,
right? Like, I'm going to do this thing over here. This is the guy. I can do whatever I want, and no expectations. Right? It's still going to sell well, but it's like you said, it's not a big country hit. I don't have to worry about that and play this game. I can do a different game. But when it comes to brands, think about this. Just about everybody listening to this podcast has at least one other set of friends. They got a set of friends that they would never mix with another set of friends, right? like they're all good people, but they're just not going to kind of roll together. It's not going to work together. So that's kind of your different brand. I mean, can you imagine trying to go to a concert that was filled with people who love like raga music, EDM music, rock and roll, country, and pop? I mean, it's like, what is that? There would be riots. Like, it's like people aren't going to get along. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like, there's going to be some tension, and so it just because it would be so confusing, like people wouldn't know what to do. So the branding is, you've got to be aware of it, and the better that you are at it, the more you're going to cut through the clutter with a pure message and get inside the mind of the consumer. So if you're feeling frustrated with cutting through that, this is why. This is part of the reason.
I have a couple stories, a branding win and a branding loss for me as a songwriter. Which one do you want to hear first? You want to have a happy story or the one where
bad
I
news first? Bad news first.
Okay.
Bad news first.
Okay. Well, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn, and so this is one where I learned. So the bad one. Okay, I ran into a branding issue with Lady Antebellum. Okay, so back before, I think I may have told this story before on here, but back before Lady A existed, I wrote a song with Hillary Scott, who's the female lead of the group, and Casey Kessel and John Armstrong. It's called A Woman Scorned. So it's fun, it's rock, and it's fairly aggressive. And it's a song that really shows off Hillary's vocals well. So
I
later,
that song.
I like that song. And so this is before Lady A. So later, when she and Charles and Dave formed Lady Antebellum, they started playing our song at all their shows. You can find it on YouTube. So, and they even cut it for their debut album. Score, right? Wrong. When it came time to decide the last couple songs that would not make the record, Woman Scorned was reduced to a bonus track. Now, that was, like, for me, that was disappointment with, like, zeros on the end of it because I knew they were going to be huge. But after hearing their debut record, I understood why A Woman Scorned didn't make the record. It didn't fit their brand. It was too aggressive. And even though the song had served them well and helped them get their deal and their shows, and a good moment for Hillary and their shows and stuff, it didn't fit really the image they were going for. It didn't fit the brand. It was too aggressive for their brand. I couldn't argue with that. You know, once you hear that, you're like, all right, I can see that. That's not what they do. I didn't write it for them to do. I wrote it for Hillary because Lady A didn't exist yet. But so that was one where, you know, it was a good example of going, okay, it's not really their lane. It's not quite their brand. Okay. It's a good learning moment for that.
Well, then I cut it with an artist and we got that on Canadian radio. So there you go.
And it did work for her. So there you go.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
Tanya Marie Harris. That's right.
There you go. Thank you, Tanya. And thank you, Johnny. So you want to hear the one where the cut happened because of branding? All right. So I've written a bunch of songs with Ruthie Collins. She is on C.L.I.M.B Records. And I had this title sitting around and I wasn't sure what to do with it, but the title is a vintage. And so I was like, oh, this is going to be perfect for Ruthie because she is all into the vintage clothing, vintage furniture, DIY, all that stuff. I mean, her Twitter description, it says where vintage meets country. I'm like, okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
Hey, I have this title. And she's like, oh, I love that. And we worked to make it where it fit her brand, where, of course, the title is spot on. And then we worked to actually fill out the song in a way that really fits her as an artist and she can sing it and it makes sense and speaks to things that she's also passionate about. So it really supports her brand. So, like, how can that not get on a record? And it made her self-titled debut EP for C.L.I.M.B Records. So you can find it on iTunes, Spotify, and some other places. And, you know, I mean, talking about fitting her brand, she has a DIY show on A&E called Homemade. So, you know, she's doing that DIY projects and talking about vintage stuff, and it's still all over her social media and stuff, that vintage type of thing. So, heck, I brought her a title that was right smack in the middle of her wheelhouse. We ended up getting a cut on it and a release on it. So, you see where the Lady A didn't quite fit the brand, didn't make the record. The Ruthie Collins song, Vintage, fit the brand, made her EP, and it's out there, you know, where people can buy 5,000 copies of it if they so choose. Just saying.
And do that because my family's growing.
Because I got a lot of kids. The Baxter Brigade. Anyway, so both the lyric and the melody have to work for the artist, both of them. So, you know, and I've talked mainly about like lyrical content, but the music has to fit the artist's brand too. Like Miranda Lambert isn't likely to cut a song that sounds like Shania Twain, no matter how well the lyric fits her. So you can ask yourself, you know, is this song the right kind of pop or is it the right shade of country? And like I mentioned with Luke Bryan, artists change over time. They aren't locked in one thing forever. Lone Star was one thing before Amazed, and they were another thing after Amazed. Toby Keith was one thing before How Do You Like Me Now, and he was another thing after. Kenny was one thing before The Beach. He's one thing after The Beach. So don't lock the brand in your mind with superglue. Make sure to look for the shifts that are inevitable. Like Jake Owen, you know, he's had to shift to more beachy stuff as well. Other people, you know, go more pop, more country, different kind of ways. Or they just more mature, like we talked about with Luke. You know, going from tailgates to most people are good and fast in life. So you just want to be aware of that kind of stuff as well. I know we're winding this down, but I I just want to impress, this is a really important concept for songwriters. If you want cuts as an artist or as a writer, you got to pay attention to brand, because other people are. People that make decisions on whether or not to record a song, they are brand conscious. And so you can just throw darts blindfolded and hope you get a cut. But how much better is it going to be if you actually aim?
Be a student of the game.
Exactly, which might mean you write a song from the very beginning in a different way, or when you're deciding what to pitch, you decide on a different song knowing about branding because you are brand conscious. And also, if you want to dive more deeply into this, into writing for an artist brand, if you want to write cuttable songs, have a cool opportunity. I have an opportunity.
I love your opportunities.
All right. Every Monday in April, I'm hosting an exclusive series of live online workshops called the C4 Experience. In this 5-week event, I'll reveal how to give artists what they need, how to give radio what it wants, and how to give fans what they like. Now, I'm only accepting 10 songwriters into this online class because it's highly interactive, and I want to spend focused time with each writer over the course of our 10 hours we'll have together. So it's only 10 writers. It's already on sale, so there aren't 10 spots left. And I only host this twice a year. So the next one's coming up in August. So you don't want to miss out. To get all the details, you just go to giftfrombrent.com. Download the free ebook, Think Like a Pro Songwriter. Not only do you get a good, valuable ebook with a lot of insights in it, puts you on the Songwriting Pro Insiders list. And so you get all the details about how to join the C4 Experience. The deadline to join us is at the end of the month. So at the end of, March? At the end of March. So if you wait till the 1st of April, it's going to be too late and you won't be able to join us. And I hate for you to miss out. So giftfrombrent.com, you can check it out and get all the details on the C4 Experience. You know what? One of the reasons I call it the C4 Experience?
What's that?
Because it'll help you blow up as a songwriter.
Boom.
Boom, boom, boom. Exactly. There we go. That's all I got, Johnny.
I love that. All right, guys. Well, that brings us to the end of another Killer Climb episode. Once again, share this if you like it. Somebody else is going to like it too. You know who that is. Make sure they know about it. Leave a rating and review. It takes 20 seconds, but it adds legitimacy to us, people that are just trying to figure out whether or not we're cool or not. They're going to listen to what you say and what you think, and they're going to make a decision that way. If you haven't done it already, please join the C.L.I.M.B community. We'd love to have you there. Go to Facebook, join the C.L.I.M B community, ask to be let in. We let everybody in, and we will roadhouse you out if you're bad boys and girls trying to spam the holy crap out of everybody. And lastly, subscribe. Get that podcast every Tuesday and now every Friday with the pull-out episodes. We got little mini-sodes that we pop out with Brent's song title challenge and with the new Expand Your Brand series, which are just quick little 5 to 10 minute blurbs on little tricks and strategies we do on social media to help you get ahead, help you be better. And the C.L.I.M B conference is, what's that link again? It's the first ever C.L.I.M B conference. It's Cinco de Mayo in Utah. Right.
theclimbconference.com. theclimbconference.com.
Go to that, sign up. As we're going to have Brent, myself, Chris Oglesby from BMG Music, and Shelby Kennedy, who's running the whole TuneCore out here in Nashville. Everything that you could possibly have about questions regarding anything in the music business. I think we've got a really good panel there to answer every single one of them and to get you going there. So, hey, this podcast exists because we want you to win, so keep on climbing.
And we'll see you at the top.